Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Wolves Report. I'm Ryan Lester, and thank you for joining us for episode 132 and the final episode of the 24-25 season. In tonight's live episode, we'll give you our Palace review, talk about the Brentford match, and give you our player analysis, give you our 24-25 season review, and take some of your questions. And for the final time this season, I'm delighted to welcome Chris, Tyler, and Mark Knock, who've joined me all season, giving up their spare time. It is very much appreciated, and I'm sure you guys enjoying having them on the show as well. Lots to talk about. Take our mind back to about 2 weeks ago now, Tyler, where it finished Crystal Palace 4, Wolverhampton Wanderers 2.
Yeah, I had to sort of Google the match report because I totally forgot what happened, to be honest. I think it started with a bit of a unique team selection, didn't it? Or a bit of a strange one that caught some of the fans off guard. Flip side to that is, Vito needs to have a look at some of these fringe players, and I'm not sure many of them really staked too much of a claim, did they? I think it was only Wolves could make a team that have been on the booze for 48 hours look like Brazil, couldn't they? No other team could do that. So they were missing some key players. Obviously, we rested a couple, but it was a bit of a nothing game, wasn't it? You don't want to play it down too much, but, when you sort of boil it down, I think it was a real opportunity for some players to stake a bit of a claim and show what they're about, but I don't think they did it ultimately. But just an end of the season type game, wasn't it? You hear comments about being on the beach and that sort of thing. Again, I don't think there was any of that, like Nocky talked about with the previous game to that, but it just shows where we lack a bit of quality, doesn't it? In both thirds of the pitch, we lack a bit. Strand Larsen did well with his goal and his assist, but I think he still could contribute a bit more. We looked awful at the back. It was almost like the O'Neill days defensively, wasn't it? We were a bit of a shambles defensively, which I think would have riled Pereira, because that's what he seems to build his teams on, is a good foundation and a strong base. So yeah, I'm sure we won't talk about it too much. Just one of those games. They took their chances, and we missed a few of ours, and fair play to them. And I don't like congratulating other teams, but I think seeing Crystal Palace lift the FA Cup has probably given us all a bit of hope as Wolves fans that there is a chance, isn't there, boys? If you can get a bit of luck along the way and you play well, there is a chance. So fair play to them. But we made a team that had been on the razzle for 2 days look like Barcelona. So
yeah. I agree. Just your first point there, it was great to see. Like I said, I'm no Palace fan either, but to see a team of a similar size and stature as us, not obviously with the same rich history, but to see a team who are probably slightly better than us at the moment, but only a slightly bit better, win the FA Cup. It does give everyone hope, and that is fantastic. The one thing I was just looking at earlier on, Tyler, I know you said you had to look it up, but I think Palace had no corners and Wolves had 9. I don't know if I've read that wrong. And in terms of clear-cut chances where you expect to score, it was 2 each. So although it wasn't the best performance, you'd have to say that Palace were just more clinical. I mean, it looked like for that first half, I think if you're playing De Giga there and you're playing Rodrigo next to him, 2 new players to the Premier League in those positions, because Rodrigo hasn't really played that much on. He's played more on the left and looked better there. Palace just took advantage of that, didn't they? And like I said, statistically, Wolves had way more of the ball. They passed it more, but in at the business end, Palace were brutal.
Yeah, I think so. And it was nice to get the goals from the set pieces, wasn't it? We're not prolific from corners, free kicks, are we? So, yeah, it was one not to be too disheartened about. I think the main gripe with people coming away from the game was, the team selection and stuff. But I'm sure we'll come on to talk about this later. As we move into next season, these players need to be ready to step in. And like I said, we'll come on to it with the questions. But for me, the first 11 needs to improve, but so does the squad. And I think it proved that Dan Bentley's not an adequate replacement at this level. I think it proved De Giga's got a lot of work to do. I think it proved Rodrigo as a starting wing back, not for me at the moment. So yeah, more questions than answers maybe for Pereira. And I'm sure, some people have seen his interview today. He backs himself. He's a tactician. He'll know a lot better than I will what went right and what went wrong that day. But stats-wise, like you said, to answer your initial question, if you were looking at it and you'd never seen a game of football before, you wouldn't be too disheartened, really.
Was that the message to the board, though? I mean, when you're making those kind of changes and you're showing...
The question out of my mouth, I was about to bring you in and say, is this Vitor showing people what will it be like without these players? Or was he just going
These players he's brought in, he spent a lot of money on De Gea. Rodrigo Gomez is meant to be the next best thing. It's not like he's sticking in like Tim Steele, and do you know what I mean? They're established footballers, aren't they? And he's bought De Gea in the window.
But he did it in a clever way, didn't he? I mean, when he played Andre and he played Gomez, he didn't play them together. So you're almost saying that these two together are great, but I've got nothing to partner them. I've got nothing to go with them. It was the same with we're going to lose Semedo. We haven't really got adequate options there. We've got Rodrigo Gomez, who can play right wing back or left wing back, and I think he's a really talented player. But I think we saw that he's going to really struggle in that position against Premier League quality players. So I think he was sending a little bit of a message to the board that we can rustle together a decent 11. But then when you take Cunha, Aït-Nouri, Semedo, who we probably expect are going to leave, all of a sudden we're on the bare bones, aren't we? So he didn't do it in the Brentford game. We put out what we would all probably deem to be our strongest team. But it felt to me like he was sending a bit of a message to say, look, this squad is better in terms of size, but in terms of quality, we can't replace quality with quality. And if you leave me like this next season, A, you may well lose him. He could end up walking because he's not the kind of manager that hangs around for too long. Or B, we're going to end up exactly in the position that we've been in this year, which is a dogfight.
Yeah, I totally agree. I guess you probably agree as well, Tyler. It's whether it's clever from the manager, whether it's him giving everyone a run. It's a bit of both. The people did feel sorry for the fans. I mean, they're going down for a nothing game to get pumped for 4, and early on in that first half, it could have been more because they were getting in again and again. So hopefully it is a message, and we can all see what we have if those players go. But let's move on to the game at the weekend, Nocky. Slightly more enjoyable, where it finished Wolverhampton Wanderers 1, Brentford 1.
I actually really enjoyed this game. It was a no pressure game for us, wasn't it? But at the same time, I didn't want to finish on 4 straight defeats because we carried that momentum into this season and we know what happened. So I wanted us to get something out of the game, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was two teams where there wasn't really a great deal between us. We gave away an absolutely horrendous goal in the first half, and some of the defending was really, really poor, and the decision making was awful. But I thought in terms of quality, there wasn't a great deal between us. They've got Wissa and Mbeumo, who were 2 really, really good players, and they feed off each other really well. But I thought we looked a threat as well. So I thought it was a decent performance. I even think maybe in terms of chances, Wolves possibly shaded it and could have won the game. But I think it was important not to get beat. And it was worth going just to see that strike from Manetzi. I mean, I've been critical of him, as we all have. But that was absolutely fantastic. I didn't think he had that in him to finish like that, but it was an extraordinary effort. No. But it was a good performance. I enjoyed the game. And look, we talk about the Palace game and the fact that we've lost it. We talk about we haven't won the last game of the season. But I think if you rewind probably 2 months, we looked at those 4 fixtures and thought we don't want to be going into them needing to get something. Yeah. And we haven't. We've been able to relax as opposed to sit there and panic for 90 minutes, hoping that we can scrape a result similar to we did against Blackburn a few years ago. So it was nice to go into the game and hope that maybe we get the result that keeps us in 14th. Maybe we don't finish 17th, but to be nowhere near that relegation mix, you've got to take the positives out of it.
The one thing that stood out for me most, Tyler, in Sunday's game was all I was thinking about was how angry I was leaving the Brentford Community Stadium when we'd been pumped for 5, and it could have quite easily been more. Subbing Andre, I think he brought Hwang on, just left the defence wide open, Gary O'Neill. What does it say about how far Wolves have come under Vitor when the last time we played this side, it could have been 6 or 7, and now we've put up a really good game against a team that was on the fringes of European football?
Yeah, I think they're a good side. We're not to talk about Brentford, but I think it'll be interesting to see how they go, because I think Mbeumo and Wissa will both leave, and it's a bit like the situation we're in, isn't it? You can't really hold on to your best players for a club of that size, but I think they're a good side for me. They're a top 10 Premier League team, and you're right. Yeah, that Brentford away game, how O'Neill stayed after that, I think none of us really know, do we? It was just a shocking performance. It just shows the organisation, the the discipline that Vitor's brought to the squad. Although it wasn't there against Palace, which we've just touched upon, that was a one-off. But that for me has been the biggest shift: is the mentality, the discipline, the organisation, and we've got a proper manager. And I was talking. What was the game before that? I was talking at Molyneux to the guy next to me, and sort of we agreed that players at this level, they're there or thereabouts, aren't they? They're all Premier League players because they can play. What then makes them go to the next level is how they're coached, how they're managed, how they're brought through. And it's no surprise that the teams at the top of the league have the best managers, is it? And Wolves now, hopefully, have got one of the better ones. And like Mark says, we can back him, we can keep hold of him because we're going into another huge summer like we do every year. But to answer your question, the difference is night and day between those two performances.
Just moving on to the goals, Nocky. It was a disappointing goal to concede to start things off. But is that a result of sometimes, if you are so insistent of playing out the back, from out the back, is it a risk and reward? Because sometimes you are going to get caught. Because recently we've pressed teams into problems. We've become quite good at that now, particularly with the engine and the pressure that Manetzi sort of sets the tone for the team with. Is this something we have to accept if we're going to try and play more out the back?
I don't really think it was playing out the back that hurt us. I thought it was just a really wretched goal, and we could have got the ball away 2 or 3 times and didn't, and it ends up swinging back into our box. I thought it was just defensively, and I know Tyler's mentioned this before around Agbadou, that every so often the game's very easy for him, so he tends to maybe switch off and there's a little mistake in him, and I don't think Totti was great either. It was a little bit of we looked vulnerable, we looked like we could get caught out, and Agbadou got caught out at Crystal Palace for the 4th goal. There's just been a few little errors slipping into play, but I felt we could have dealt with the initial ball in the box. We didn't. Aït-Nouri, I've no idea what he's trying to do, why he's trying to cut back inside and take the ball back towards our own goal. Just deal with it. It's all right doing those flicks, and I know he's the kind of player that does that, but just be sensible in that position and don't overplay. Try and get rid of the ball when you need to. And he's almost drilled that into him, that it's fine to wallop it downfield when you need to. So to turn back to turn back and head towards your own goal and then throw yourself to the floor trying to get a free kick. And again, we just don't deal with the ball in the box, and Mbeumo tucks it in. So Sarr's caught in no man's land, but I don't think that's any fault of his own. He's maybe anticipating a shot at the near post and the lad crosses it. So I thought defensively it was a shambles. And yes, you can get caught out playing out from the back, but I don't really think this was it. I think it was just really poor decision making from our lads under not a huge amount of pressure.
Yeah, I think that's the second game in a row that we got caught out sort of being a bit sloppy coming out of the back, a bit casual. But again, that's exactly what it is, sloppy. It's sloppy defensively. Again, those things weren't happening when we needed the points. You'd almost, I know they definitely weren't on the beach on Sunday, because I thought it was a really good game. Considering there wasn't a lot to play for, I thought that was a good competitive game of football. Yeah, but agreed. Those mistakes weren't happening when we were on that run. There was no messing around. There was no flicks or tricks. It was serious football, getting to business. So maybe in terms of being a bit more relaxed to try and express ourselves. But the highlight of the game, and Tyler, you're gonna absolutely love this. But this for me, for the older listeners, Dugan and Richards, for the listeners of our age, it was Much and Ball, and now it's Strand Larsen and Marshall Manetzi. Not a combination I thought I'll be discussing with Tyler on this podcast, but that was a proper goal. There is a place for tippy-tappy football and 1-2s, but Agbadou's gone short. Agbadou's gone short, yeah. Everyone thinks he's going to go short. He's wedded it 75 yards. Strand Larsen's flick on is absolutely perfect. And Marshall Manetzi morphed into the African Zidane. It was incredible. What a wonderful goal. And honestly, the raw for that goal, Tyler, was fantastic.
I'm happy to talk about it, but I think this is a Nocky one, because if there's a goal that describes Nocky's view on football, this is it, isn't it? It's just,
go on, Nocky.
It's just absolute route one, and it makes a mockery of your Guardiolas, doesn't it, and your Barcelonas and your Man Cities, because you get exactly the same output for that. 3 touches, bang, back of the net. Agbadou's tried to kick the ball the hardest I've ever seen anyone ever. It's like us in the park, in that you've got no technique and you're just trying to blast it. The header, to be fair,
was wonderful.
Excellent, yeah. you can sort of say, he's just flicked it on, but he's flicked it on perfectly. He hasn't had to break stride.
It's a caressed flick, isn't it? It's not just
really
a flick. Good. He's seen his man and he's knocked it down, and he's absolutely perfect.
And another assist for him, and he's rightly or wrongly, Strand Larsen split some opinions. One thing you can't knock this season is his numbers. His goals and assists have been superb. I mean, and the finish. I mean, who in their right mind is thinking he's going to half volley that into the top corner? Nobody. No one in that ground think that's good. I think he looked a bit surprised himself, didn't he? But you are right, for the people of our age and your sort of 40s and 50s, that was just much and ball. I'm sure I've seen that goal somewhere before where
absolutely
ball wouldn't even have a touch and he'd just smash it, wouldn't he, as hard as he can. And the keeper can't set, the keeper can't be ready. And I saw someone put earlier goal of the season. I mean, it's arguable between that and Sarabia's, isn't it? Because it was just glorious. And it's nice to finish on that note, because like Mark said, we didn't want to finish the season with 4 defeats. It gives you a bit of a lift, doesn't it? So lovely goal.
Nocky, what does it say about our manager? I know some of the teams are very regimented in the way they play, the little triangles. It's relentless. There's very few long balls. But our manager, I think one of the players said, that he gives them the freedom that if it's on and they're in a 2-on-2, you're in equal numbers, take the long hit. Isn't that refreshing to see your team go direct instead of being forced to play sort of everyone doing the fashionable Pep way?
Absolutely. I mean, Tyler's a purist. He likes football played a certain way. I just like to see moments like that. I love to see just an absolute blast from downfield. Like you say, I mean, I think he's probably taking it because he can kick it further than anyone else on the pitch. It's an absolute leather of a strike.
It's the biggest goal kick I've ever seen. No wind as well.
But it looked like it was, I mean, can you practice that in the training ground? I don't know. But it looked like there was intent behind it, because Menezes on his way long before it's anywhere near Strand Larsen. And the flick on, he's got to get that right. Yeah. He's got to get that right. Otherwise, it's going nowhere. But I mean, when he went through, I didn't even get up, to be honest, because he'd had a similar one in the first half that he put out for a throw-in, so I wasn't really expecting a great deal. So to see him finish it like that, and he's done the keeper at the near post, but keeper's not got a sniff, has he? It's an absolute howitzer past him. And I'm all for stuff like that. And we've seen a better version of Jose Sarr because of things like that, because he hasn't always got to use his feet. Sometimes there's nothing wrong with just getting rid of the ball. And when you're under pressure against the side with some good quality players and they've got a good midfield, sometimes it doesn't hurt to bypass them and just wallop it 70 yards downfield. So I thought it was an excellent goal. And I actually thought Menezes had a good game as well. I thought it was a good performance. And it's probably his best performance for Wolves, even if you take the goal out of it. I thought he was in the game. He was active. He was initiating things. He had that little bit of energy about him as well. So he probably deserved to score on the day. And it was a great moment. It was a lovely way to finish the season as well.
I mean, I can't resist the joke. If we said he would, if instead of hitting it, if he was trying to control it, he'd still be controlling it now. but he didn't. And you got to give credit to the guy, because he offers that run, gets into that position so many times, and he's been rewarded for it. I mean, you're not a Premier. I mean, granted, the manager said he's limited, but it's a fantastic finish. You can't take anything away. And as Tyler said, it's a goalkeeper's nightmare. When a player takes a touch, you can kind of guess where he's going because he sets his body. Menezes was over. It was like he caught the ball on the way up and he absolutely battered it in. So,
we've all been critical of Menezes, haven't we? And we've all been critical of his performances. But one thing you can't question is that we've been missing a player to make those kind of runs. We've been missing a player just to support kind of the midfield to attack. And we've mentioned it before. It's similar to what Dave Edwards used to do, where he just used to pop up from nowhere and he'd make that run in midfield. And it just causes their defenders a little bit of a question, doesn't it? He puts them a little bit on the back foot, and we've not really had a player who does that. So as much as he's a player I think we need to upgrade going forward, you can't take away from the fact that he's probably the best in the squad for making those kind of runs.
Yeah, he's made an absolute difference, and he's made a difference. I know it sounds ridiculous, because this is why we're three punters on a podcast and we're not football managers. That the manager and the recruitment team of Vitor's wanted somebody that could support the team when they didn't have the ball and cause chaos in possession, and he did that. And on with you, I thought that was his best game for Wolves. I think he actually looked all right on the ball. He got in good position. So yeah, credit to him. It's a nice way to end the season with a fantastic goal and a decent point. You are listening and watching episode 132 of the Wolves Report with Chris Tyler, Mark Knock, and myself, Ryan Lester. As always, we've been the show out live and it's available afterwards on Spotify, YouTube, and Twitter and Facebook. Pez Perry says, top work this season, fellas. Thank you. As always, we have the comments live on the show. It's a big part. We like to get as many comments up as we can. So appreciate your kind words, Pez. Thank you for being part of the show. Nocky, let's go through the team quickly. I want to get through to the season review and some of the questions. There's some real good ones tonight. We'll do this pretty quickly. I know Tyler didn't see all the game. He was on holiday again, so I'm not going to force into that. So we'll bat this backwards and forwards between me and you.
I've heard Toti was really good, lads, though, so I look forward to that bit.
Well, we can just rinse and repeat your usual, mate. Jose Sarr, Nocky?
Didn't have much of a chance for the goal. Didn't do a great deal wrong. Still a little bit questionable in terms of his kicking. But you compare him to Dan Bentley's performance a week before, and I certainly think he's a safer pair of hands.
I'm not sure we'll see Dan Bentley or Jose Sarr play for Wolves again. Just what I'm thinking.
Well, if King goes as well, you're talking none. We've got no.
And Johnson, yeah.
So it's not looking great in that front.
Into the back three, I'll share these with you. Starting off with Toti. Tyler's right, and it's a strange one with Toti because he seems to be really good or not very good, and as much as defensively he stops people. I mean, it's sort of like I sent the stats in the group chat in terms he's been the best one-on-one defender in the league. Unfortunately, it was one of those weeks when his passing was going a little bit astray. So poor game for him. Emmanuel Agbadou, Knocker.
I mean, he should have had an assist for that goal kick. Obviously, he won't because it was flicked on. That was probably his best moment in the game. Other than that, I thought there was a few moments where he was a little bit suspect. He's not been at his level, and he's set the bar very, very high in terms of his own performances, but he's not been at his level for a few weeks, I'd say. So, yeah, not a great performance. We've only shipped one goal, but yeah, he made me a bit nervous the last couple of games, probably for the first time since the Bristol City game in the Cup.
Let's not talk about that. Matt Doherty, I think we talked about it being an experiment, but I think Matt Doherty has proven himself. He's been, other than probably that Forest game, he's been versatile. He's not really been beaten. He's good in the air. I think
of the three, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think he's been solid at right centre back. And if the season was to start with Matt Doherty there, you'd think Mascara's come in, but you talk about Matt Doherty, and I think he has been a solid right-sided centre-back for the last half of the season. Is that a fair comment, Tyler?
I think if you're saying good things about Matt Doherty, then it proves that he's doing well. And I'm a bit with you, mate. If he's there starting at right centre-back next season alongside Agbadou, with Mascara coming back, I'm not too fussed about that position, really. I think we realised against Crystal Palace, sometimes you're a better player when you're not playing, aren't you? And I think it showed that when he didn't play. The Giga at the moment, for one reason or another, is nowhere near it, in my opinion.
I agree.
So at the moment, for me, it's his shirt to lose. And if he has a good pre-season and he's still fit and he's ready to go and he's got the appetite, then no concerns for me.
Yeah, I'm the same. Matt Doherty looks like a seasoned right centre-back. He's comfortable. He takes the space in front of him. Credit to Matt Doherty. We called it an experiment on here, but now he's in the team because he deserves it. Fair play, Matt.
And a quick note on to Vitor as well, because I think before O'Neill left, he had it the other way around, and he had Semedo at centre-back and Doherty at wing-back. Pereira changed that straight away, and obviously we saw the benefits of it.
Yeah, I think was Dock in right centre back against Leicester away? Did they ever got that right?
Definitely Forest at home. I know we had injuries that day, but yeah, you might be right. Yeah, he tweaked it straight away, and we benefited from it massively.
Moving on to the wing backs, Nocky, Nelson Semedo and Ryan Aït-Nouri.
I don't think either of them particularly covered themselves in glory. Aït-Nouri was at fault for the goal. I don't know if he's trying too hard at the moment or whether he's trying too many different things, but he hasn't looked the player he was. And I know there was a lot of people giving him a lot of credit in recent games, but for me, I've been really frustrated with his performances. I think he's overplaying. I think he's trying to do too much. He doesn't seem to want to beat someone once. He wants to beat him 2 or 3 times. As good a player as he is, I want to see him a little bit more getting back to basics, but because he seems to be getting caught in all kinds of different positions at the moment. Semedo, again, I don't think it was his best performance. I was very nervous about losing Nelson. I'm less nervous now because I think his performances recently haven't really been at it. He's still a quality player, obviously, but I wasn't very impressed with either wing back. I think the the back three and the wing backs, with the exception of Doherty, I think we're all, if we were going to score them, they're all struggling to get past the 5.
Yeah, I'll move on to the centre midfield. Andre and Joe Gomez. For me, just they're so. I mean, Joe Gomez, I thought was excellent.
Different class.
Probably. I mean, I think Marshall Manetzi probably just showed it because he got the goal. But Joe Gomez, that double pirouette he did, and he's just such an. I mean, he's an incredible recoverer of the ball, but he's such an underrated footballer with some of his touches and nutmegs that he's doing. He's fantastic, and Andre. I mean, if we keep these guys, as Tyler mentioned, the spine of that team of Strand Larsen, Andre, Joe Gomez, and Agbadu, that's a really, really good foundation for a Premier League team in our position. So, but for both of them, Sunday, I thought they were good. I thought Joe Gomez was excellent and probably joint man of the match with Marshall Manetzi. Knocking on to Matheus Cunha and Goncalo Gedge.
I thought Guedes was an absolute disaster. I thought he was awful. It was a terrible, terrible performance. And we've called out Manetzi before. This was as worse than anything I've seen Manetzi do. Couldn't control the ball. He looked like he was pulling out of tackles. He had a really good opportunity from 7 or 8 yards out, and he didn't finish it. I thought it was a really wretched display from him. It was appalling.
He didn't recover from that miss, did he? He really.
He was poor before that, though, wasn't he? I mean, he just never seemed to impact the game. He's weak. He feels very. He's not physical enough. I just don't think he's at it at this level. Put him in Spain or France or someone like that, I think you'd see a better player. I think you see someone who could impact games. But at this level, he gets bullied. He's just not at it. So he's definitely one that's going to go, and I won't be too sad to see him go, even though I did have quite high hopes for him. Cunha, I thought he was okay. I think since he's made it clear he wants to go to Man United, he's maybe guilty of trying a little bit too hard, and he's affecting his own performance.
It looks to me like he's playing for himself and not for the team in the last few games.
I don't know. I think he's trying to show the fans that he loves being here and all this sort of stuff. I don't think it's. I don't think he's playing for himself. I think he's trying too hard to leave the fans with something special. That's what I think he was trying to do, because he knows he's probably done this transfer, the wrong way. He struggled to really impact the game. Didn't have a huge amount in there, so he worked hard. He put plenty in, but certainly not his best day.
And last but not least, I'll jump on Marshall Manetzi. One of the goals of the season. I don't think it's quite Sarabia's goal at Man United, but it was a fantastic goal and probably his best game in a Wolves shirt. But I know Tyler has been openly critical, rightly so. He's a player that, when you lose games, that you start to ask, well, what's he done in that game? And that's a really fair comment, because when the fixtures got more difficult the last few games, you've not really seen. You've seen the work ethic and the commitment. That's fine, but there's been not really getting any goal scoring positions or offering much. Sunday was totally different. Nocky. He ran the channel in the first half, I thought, really well, brought people into play. He did a few chest downs. He looked like he should be in that team. That's probably the most technically pleasing I've seen him in a game, because usually you don't really see much, but a fantastic finish and linked the play well.
Yeah, I completely agree. I thought he was really good. If it hadn't been for the performances of probably João Gomez and Andre, you'd be almost sniffing at him for man of the match. It's quite ironic that actually the best performance he's ever had for Wolves, and he actually did get taken off. He's had some absolute stinkers, and he stays on the pitch for 90 minutes, so that was quite ironic. But his goal was exceptional. His work rate was really, really good. He must be an absolute pain to play against. And I agree. I thought he come short and picked the ball up and was involved in some nice one-touch football, dropped into the space. It was just a very good performance. He felt like an effective player. And I've said on here, he'll play 90 minutes now. I won't remember him touching the ball. Whereas I remember his performance, it was pretty high quality, to be fair to him.
This is episode 132 of the Wolves Report with Mark Knott, Chris Tyler, and myself, Ryan Lester. Let's talk about the season as a whole now, gents. We'll get into some questions. Season 24-25, Tyler. It started off a little bit bumpy, should we say. It got gradually worse, and it got incredibly mind-blowing of how we had the same manager. It carried on a bit longer, and then George Mendes, Uncle George, steps in and finds somebody. Season of two halves, one absolute stinker, one with much improvements, but still with a lot of work to do.
I think it's been a disaster. I think you're being kind. Look, you are right. How you get to Christmas with him in charge, I'll never understand. And I know there's personal pride from people like Hobbs and Shea who trying to back their man and hoping it turns it round. But like we talked about, some of us knew after Villa away he had to go. We all then knew after Brentford away he had to go. He somehow stays till just before Christmas. And then finally they wake up and realise he can no longer stay in that role. There's been moments, haven't there, but it's not been a very enjoyable season, to be honest. We've had some good days, as we do when we go away and home and have a laugh and stuff, but I can probably count on one hand this season the amount of good moments or good times or good results, good matches, and that's not enough, is it? You know, there's a real chance now for them to get it right and move forward. We've said it a lot over the last 3-4 years, but I think ultimately we probably are where we are. We had one top 10 finish in the last 4 or 5 seasons, but you know, we are a lower league Premier League side. I think that's probably what we need to all remember. And like you always said, Ryan, if you give me 12th to 15th and a bit of a cup run and a bit of ambition, I think most Wolves fans are probably happy with that. We just need to get back to being a stable, well-run football club, don't me, in my opinion. But I think the season, in my opinion, has been a bit of a disaster, really.
Nocky, is Tyler been a bit harsh to call it a disaster, or is that fair? Because like I said, I sort of split it into two. It was definitely a disaster under O'Neill, but the job Vitor's done. I mean, if Wolves had no points when Vitor took over, they still would have stayed up, which is quite incredible, really.
I didn't know that. That's a really good stat. I don't think he is being harsh. I think it's a disaster as well. I think the first half of the season was as bad as the year we went down under Mick on 25 points. It was absolutely wretched. And you think of the Chelsea game, you think of Villa away, the amount of times we were a goal up in games and their manager would adjust something and ours wouldn't have a clue how to counteract it. We'd end up blowing the lead. And there were so many last minute games, you know, you think of Ipswich, Man City, you think of Liverpool when they won a goal up and we equalised, they went straight down the other end and won a penalty. It was such an unprofessional performance all season, really. We had we were lucky in a sense that we got Vitor in and it worked, because we were, you know, we talk about circling the drain, we were halfway down the plug hole at that point.
To have Leicester first game as well, it was massive.
Well, we were 5 points adrift of Leicester City, who are genuinely one of the worst football teams I've ever seen. So to be 5 points adrift of them at any point of the season shows you just how poor we were.
Yeah,
we got away with it. We had, you know, that unbelievable 6-game winning streak, and yes, you'd look at the teams and say you probably should beat them, but not many teams will get 6 on the bounce in this division. So you have to be proud of that, and you have to be grateful for it. And there's been some highlights. You know, I was there at Man United away with Tyler and our kids were there as well, and it was unbelievable experience. The Leicester City game, first one in charge, was a brilliant day. And there's been some highlights of Villa at home, but I feel like the second half of the season has almost helped us to paper over the cracks of the first half of the season to make it feel not quite as bad as it was, because we've been in an absolute dogfight this season. And I was pretty convinced we were going to go down. I still feel now we're circling the drain, especially with the players that we're going to lose imminently, and we've already started to lose. I feel like the summer's going to be an absolute huge challenge just to get us back to the level we're at now. So yes, we stayed up, and there's a lot of people who deserve a lot of credit for that. There's been some incredible individual performances. I think Strand Larsen in particular, his numbers for his first season in this division are incredible. But the whole season, I feel as a whole, it's been disappointing. When you've been in the league for 7 years, your only ambition is to try and survive every season. You're not going to keep getting away with it. So I hope there's been lessons learned. We're getting all the right messages from Shea and the club, but those messages tend to filter down when you're looking at season ticket renewal time. But I just hope they've learned the lessons, and we go into next season a little bit stronger and a little bit more balanced as a squad. And I'm with you guys. I'm not expecting Wolves to finish in the top 10 next season, but if you offer me 14th, but we're never in a risk of relegation, and then maybe we have a bit of a cup run, I'll take that because that's progress. But what you don't want to do is be in a position where you're 6 games in and you're bottom of the league again. It's not sustainable to do that. You're going to get caught out.
Great stuff from Nocky. Tyler, is Nocky being harsh there in terms of papering over the cracks, or have we got a manager now that's got the best out of the players, showing what their capabilities are, which is obviously highlighting poor management previously?
No, I think he's absolutely spot on. I think you're papering over the Grand Canyon. I don't think you're papering over cracks. we saw against Crystal Palace away, that's a reality check. This squad is, for me, still nowhere near where it needs to be. And I name 4 players at the moment that I'd probably want starting next season. And that's Agbadou, Gomez, Andre and Strand Larson. Doherty maybe, Toty maybe, but I think they can potentially both be improved. The goalkeeper situation will change. The forward area is going to change massively, and so is the wing-back area. So, no, I think Noki's spot on. If you sat here now and we're thinking we've probably got 4 or 5 players that we want to be included next season, and the rest, let's be honest, we're not too bothered about. Forbes, Wang, Guedes, Sarabia's gone. And let's be honest, I'm a big Sarabia fan, as you know, but I'm not too sad to see the back of him because they've had their chance, these players have, and they've not done it. So I think we've massively papered over the cracks. And like I said, the season for me is still disappointing. However, they've given themselves a chance, haven't they? And I suppose that's what we're all hanging on to at the moment.
How much earlier on in the season, Nokia? I know it was a bad start, but how much of a factor was losing Mosquera? Now, we lost games, but Mosquera for me looked like one of Wolves' best players in those early games. He was winning the ball, he was coming out, he was aggressive. I mean, I'm not saying he would have saved O'Neill's job, but I think losing him at that point of the season when we're already on a bad run was an absolute disaster, and it showed us up for not signing another centre back as well.
Yeah, I really like Mosquera. I thought his performances, he looked solid, and I do like the idea of him playing alongside Totti and Agbadou. I feel like that would be a relatively strong back line. Of course, it hurt us. You know, there's no question about that. But at the same time, we were so unbalanced. The 11 we were picking, it wasn't balanced. There was no creativity. There's no creative flair. We were leaving players like Andre out consistently. We were constantly giving soft goals away, and that was with and without Mosquera. So yes, it hurt us. I don't think it was a direct correlation to the first 6 or 7 games. I think that's more on the manager. But you're gonna miss losing quality players. But that's a deeper issue, isn't it? Because Matt Hobbs came out and told us we didn't need a new centre half. We were never trying to sign a new centre half. Obviously, we've heard differently, but we were never trying to sign a centre half. And in fact, if we did get one, we were going to get rid of Santiago Bueno. You go into Christmas and you sign 2 new centre halves. So there's an issue at the club in terms of, I think, what managers want compared to what Matt Hobbs decides they can have. I'm hoping with Mendes coming in now, that's a problem that we can rectify, because I don't see Matt Hobbs and Mendes having the same kind of conversations. I would expect it will be heavily Mendes.
Well, there's a really good question on that, so we'll pass on that bit if that's okay.
Yeah. So, but I think Jeff Shee's always a problem. I think Matt Hobbs is a problem. The ambition of the club collectively has been a problem for us, because I don't know what we're trying to achieve at the moment. It almost seems to be a reliance on, let's hope that there's 3 worse teams than us, and I'm not sure that consistently you can do that and you can keep relying on that. But yeah, to answer your original question, I think Mosquera was a big loss to us, but I think if he'd have stayed fit, we still would have been in the same position that we were when O'Neill was sacked.
Yeah, interesting point. I mean, I'm the same as you. I'm excited about, the athleticism and the pace of potentially Agbadou, Mosquera and Toty next season. If Wolves want to play high pressing, then that's the back 3 for it, isn't it, really? Because there's some real monsters in there, and hopefully that's the case. But hopefully if Doc's fit as well and he's keeping Mosquera out, it's showing Doc's playing well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Tyler, what was the biggest turning point in the season? Because there was multiple lows at the start, and obviously getting slapped by Chelsea, slapped at Brentford. But what was the point of no return for you? When should Wolves have taken it? On a serious note, when should Wolves have taken action and made their change? Bearing in mind, O'Neill had been rewarded a new contract in the summer after a terrible end. What was the point of no return for you, where this is it now, we need to make a change?
The point of no return was the time they sacked him, in my opinion. You can't lose at home to Ipswich Town. You can't. And I think by that point, 99.99% of Wolves fans agree the change had to be made. I personally would have done it sooner. I think we just talked about the Villa game and the Brentford game. They're the 2 that stand out in my mind for different reasons. I think Villa, we started the game really well.
Villa had nothing the first half. We were fantastic.
Yeah. And I remember talking to, Sean, who was sat next to me, and even my lad, and saying, Villa will win this game. They'll turn it around, they'll tweak it, and they'll win the game. We all knew it was coming. and his inability to react was alarming. I remember JP said a similar thing after Villa. He'd have got rid. The Brentford one was just, you don't even need to have ever watched a game of football to realise that whoever's in charge of the team, I can't remember what kit we wore, whether it was gold or black, he shouldn't be managing that team, because that was just an utter shambles of a performance where, for me, the players weren't playing for him. However, to answer your question, I think the final straw was the Ipswich game. Lack of discipline from Kuna and Ait-Nouri, losing the goal in the last minute. I think even Hobbs and She at that point knew this can't go on any longer. And as you boys have already said tonight, we got Pereira in and we stayed up comfortably, didn't we? So, yeah, that was for me, and that was my 40th birthday. And like I said at the time, it was the best present I could have had, to be honest.
Can I ask, why didn't we sack him? Because I never thought he should have got a new contract. And after the Chelsea game, when we conceded 3 identical goals in the space of 10 minutes, alarm bells should have been ringing then. So how did it take so long? Was it personal pride? Was it arrogance?
Yeah, my understanding is that Wolves were looking for a manager from reasonably earlier on, but obviously a manager, usually most teams have someone in the pipeline they're having conversations with. Now, I might be wrong on this, but it's my understanding that they just couldn't get anybody. They interviewed people and they spoke to people, but they just couldn't get it over the line. Now, and that's when obviously Mendes, obviously Guau and Mendes called the shots really more than anyone else, had to get fix the relationship with Mendes and get Vitor in. And as Tyler said, it was a fantastic birthday present in the end, because that move has saved Wolverhampton Wanderers. So I really think it was an inability to do the proper recruitment internally, and we needed help externally. That's my opinion, Nocky. That's what I understand it to be.
But then on the back of that, what does that say about those two then?
That's what I was going to say. That's so poor, isn't it? Because I remember Matt Hobbs coming out a while ago and talking about succession plans. They knew what they were going to do. They had things in place, 2-3 managers down the line, and they couldn't get. They weren't going to sack a manager who was clearly mentally shot himself. It wasn't doing him any good being at the club.
Yeah.
And he was taking us down. I don't think any of us would disagree if he was still in charge now, we'd be a championship team. And the fact they couldn't pull the trigger because they didn't have anybody else to come in. We're a Premier League side. There should be people fighting over each other to take a job like this. So the fact we couldn't get anybody in, that shows you the kind of ambition that we've got at the club. And it also shows you that we haven't got the right people doing the recruitment, in my opinion.
Sometimes, though, guys, wouldn't you say? I mean, not just in football, it's in life. Something bad has to happen for something good to happen. So for it to be dragged out so long, Mendes has been brought in because, God, we're in trouble here. We really need your help. And there's a guy that was turned down by Everton that's been desperate to manage in the Premier League. Mendes client, got some Mendes players in. And hopefully, as you said, Nocky, this is the beginning of that relationship again, because all the best times, Jimenez, Jota, Neves, Willy Bolly, all those players coming in made Wolves a side that was playing in Europe again. So I'm not saying that's going to happen now, but for me, all the best times, whether you like it or dislike it, George Mendes and Guesty Few have been a massive part of Wolverhampton Wanderers' success, the most successful period in our lives. So,
but you just hope it's planned, though, don't you? I mean, you look at a Brighton. I know we're talking about Wolves, not Brighton. They lose their manager within a week. Someone's already ready to go. They've got oven ready
succession planning there massively. Yeah,
and you look at the players they lose. They lost Casado. They lost, some top draw players, and then they're bringing players like Mitoma for £3 million. They know who they're moving on, and they know who they're bringing in. We've known for 6 months that Cunha's going to go. They will have known longer than that he was going to go.
Yeah.
Sarabi is going to go. Guedes is going to go. There's no excuse for me for us to get to pre-season training and we haven't got 4 or 5 players in the door. And I know that there's, you want to get the best price for these players. You're not always in a position to do that because we can't go into pre-season training and we're lining up with Doyle as our starting player, or we're lining up with Rodrigo Gomez as our right wing back, or Pedro Lima, who couldn't get a kick this season. We need players to come in quickly and we need to be good to go. Otherwise, we're going to find ourselves in a horrible situation.
Yeah, I agree. In terms of this season, just going through the end of season awards, I know we debated this heavily, Tyler. I was pleased that the fans' player of the award came from Joe Gomez, Who was the best player? It was Cunha. But did he deserve it with his attitude? I don't think so. So I think that's why he got that. Obviously, he was top scorer as well. There is no doubt that Matheus Cunha is the most talented footballer at the club. One of the best players I've ever seen play for Wolves, capable of magic off his seat. But his behaviour, and honestly, I've said it on a few shows, the way I felt coming home from Bournemouth in the Cup after his behaviour doing that was just, So, you know what, thanks for the goals, but hopefully we reinvest the money well. Any more comments on season 24-25, gents?
I'm glad it's over. I think we could all do with a bit of a break.
Glad it's over. Bring on the cricket season.
Bobby Smith says, thanks for the excellent podcast throughout the season. Always concise and spot on comments. Definitely the best poddy around. Bobby, if you don't know, anyone knows Bobby used to write in the Load of Ball fanzine a few years back. Bobby, appreciate your kind words.
The checks in the post, sir.
Yeah,
they need to bring that back. I used to love the Load of Ball.
Maybe they could do a digital one. I don't know.
Nah, you need the paper. You need to be able to smell.
It'd be nice to have some people that actually gave some proper opinions on the club and the material, wouldn't it?
I mean, I'd get you two doing it, but you can't read and write, so it's no good to me there.
Could draw stickmen though.
Have you seen Knocky's thing, Knocking 1982B? I mean, what's
I don't know what that's all about. I've cloned myself. This is version B.
Yeah. Let's move on to some questions. And this is a really, really good question from Alex. And I know a few people have felt like this, but we'll discuss it at length. Alex Moore says, is anyone else bored with it? The football for the last 4.5 seasons out of 7 has been absolutely dire. With the expected departures and how Fosun don't seem to learn, I don't see it changing in 25-26. I think that's a brilliant point. So many people have fell out of love with the football, but a lot of people go for the social. I mean, I take my mom to the home games, and that's my social time as well with my mom. Most of the away days I get to, I try and go with you guys because I want to have a day out. So for me, I mean, Alex is hardcore all over Europe watching Wolves. He must be on flirting with 1,000 games, if not more. If I've insulted you already, Alex, I apologise. But this is a guy that goes home and away every week. That's slowly sort of dropping the games down. Do you guys feel like there's been a drop off, Tyler? This is a good one for you because
I do. But that's me personally, and I get personally if people have, and I get personally if people haven't. You know, I've still not sort of missed a game this season apart from the weekend because we were away camping with the family, but I do feel more and more like it's a chore, and that's not necessarily because we're not challenging. As you know, Ryan, you know a lot more Wolves fans than me. A lot of committed, hardcore Wolves fans walked away this season, didn't they? And went to non-league games, went to do other things. I think you just want to see something, don't you? You just want to see a little spark, a bit of ambition, just something. But you know, maybe it's just a generational thing. You know, I'm getting older, my kids get into different things. They want to go and do fishing and cricket, and you know, life sometimes gets in the way. But I must say, I'm inclined to agree with Alex in a way that the end of the Nuno era, plus some of the large era, plus the end of the Jailer era, it's not been great, has it? It hasn't been, and we can't deny that. And maybe we're a bit spoiled, we're a bit lucky because, you know, I'm 40 and Wolves haven't been in the Premier League for many seasons of my life. So to be here for 6-7 years in a row is probably a positive if you look at it overall. But for me, you just want to see something. I want to see what I see with Newcastle, with Villa, even Palace to a point. You know, when you're seeing them lift that's what you want, isn't it? You just want your team to have a bit of a go.
Just once.
And I don't feel that at the moment we're having a go. Is probably how it feels.
Okay.
Am I bored with it? I want us to do better. But I've renewed my season ticket knowing we're probably going to have the same season because I can't walk away from the club. I still get that buzz when I walk up to the ground. I still love the feeling of the ball in the back of the net, and even against Brentford when there's nothing on it, it's a dead rubber, really, isn't it? All you're trying to do is finish 14th at best. But the feeling of that ball in the back of the net from Menezes is just an incredible, spontaneous burst of emotion that I can never walk away from. So,
and obviously, you go with your lad now as well. So,
yeah, my lad's got his season ticket with me, and he's absolutely loving it. And I mean, it's hard, isn't it? Because you feel almost ungrateful in a sense, because these are the best years of our lives as Wolves supporters. We've spent most of our time supporting this club in the lower league, and now we're unhappy that we're in the Premier League. But I think the reality is you want to be in a position where you've got something to compete for, or you've got a belief that you can achieve something. Whereas at the moment, the only target seems to be, can we stay in the division and can we do it a little bit more comfortably than we did last year? But I do feel that there's got to be a level of optimism. You've got to have a bit of belief that you can do a Crystal Palace, or you can get it right. And with Vitor having a full pre-season, bringing in players that he probably wants, working alongside Mendes, you've just got a little bit of a niggle that maybe we can be that team. Maybe we can emulate a Brighton and we can start pushing up the league and we can start improving. It's difficult to do without throwing loads of money at it, but you've got to have a little bit of hope going into it. So I'm not bored with it, and I'll never walk away from my football team, but I would like us to go into a season with a little bit more ambition and have a little bit more hope that maybe it's not going to be a dogfight.
Yeah, I some really good points from you both.
Quick one though, does the league you're in matter? Because Birmingham City, so we all live sort of this side. They've had the best season they've had for.
Yeah, we did that. We did that 10 years ago in League One. It was fantastic.
Because they've got ambition and they're trying to get somewhere. They're on a journey, aren't they? I just don't really know what journey we're on anymore, to be honest.
It depends who you are, doesn't it? I mean, we were all at Old Trafford. They won a corner, and because of the way they put the away end bit in now, you're kind of sitting looking over the United fans. They had a corner. You've probably got 400 or 500 people in front of you all with camera phones. They're not interested in anything other than seeing Manchester United in the Premier League. For us, it's slightly different because we know what it's like to be in the lower leagues, and I had a fantastic time in League One. That was one of my best seasons. So I don't think it matters in terms of following your team. If you're a proper supporter, you're going to follow your team, whatever division you're in, aren't you? But I think being in this division it gives you hope that your team's going to progress and going to develop and going to turn into something a little bit better and a little bit more special.
Do you know what?
In the Championship, you never get.
Do you know what I think it is?
Of winning a trophy.
Sorry, Nocky. Do you know what I think it really is? I think that we are so close. Yeah, now established Premier League team. Yeah, you see Palace, you see Villa going Champions League, you see Newcastle, you see these teams. All right. A little bit good recruitment and then a little bit of luck, yeah, and that genuinely could be us. We're not talking outside the middle of the Championship trying to win the FA Cup now. It's realistic now. Palace have done it. Newcastle have done it. Yeah, I think that's what I think people get really frustrated because I'm not saying pump billions and millions in. What I'm saying is recruit well, and I think people get frustrated because you know what? If they did it well, yeah, then that could be our name on one of them trophies.
But that's what teams around us have done, haven't they? I mean, we went to Palace a couple of weeks ago and they rested two of their best players, maybe three of their best players. They then brought them on to close the game off, and within 5 minutes, Eze's rounded the goalkeeper and it's in the back of the net and the game's over. We haven't got that quality to be able to do that. So until you can give yourself a good 11, a good bench, and then a few good players who can slip in when needed, you're never going to be competitive. And Palace are a lot better than us. You saw what they did to Villa. You saw what they've done to Man City in the final. But that's because they've been a little bit more organised. They've done the right signings. They've not been scared to dip into the Championship and bring in players. And I guarantee you, their record signing is nowhere near the money we spent on our record signing. So it's not always about throwing money at it. It's sometimes just about doing smart business like we've done with do. But you've got to have that level of ambition. And what you can't do is you can't keep cashing in on players as early as you possibly can. They've kept Eze. If they keep him for next season, he's going to have a run in Europe and they're going to have an outside chance of getting another trophy in the Europa League because it's not as strong a competition as it used to be. So you've got to have the ambition to hold on to players. You've got to have, if you want to be a Newcastle or a Villa, you're going to have to throw money at it, aren't you? We're not going to do that. But there's no reason you can't do some smart business and focus on one of the cups. But you can only really focus on the League Cup or the FA Cup if you know you're in a comfortable position in the league, which is where Palace have been most of the season. Other than the first sort of 6 or 7 games, they've got themselves clear, sat in the middle of the league, and they were in a position to really have a go at one of them cups. We were never really in a position to do that.
Nocky, absolutely fantastic stuff. Alex, it's a great question, a great debate. Thank you for being part of this latest episode. Quick question from Borley. Let's fire through some of these now. So some really good ones I want to get on the show. Borley says, how much longer can we go on selling our better players before it catches up with us? That's a really good point because, unfortunately now, if you look at PSR, even like how are Villa having to sell players? How are Newcastle having to sell players and not be able to spend? Teams that are getting Champions League money. I mean, it is really I feel like it's designed to protect the elite and like look at the relegated teams, the teams that got promoted. But those are the rules and there's nothing we can do about it. So unfortunately, with the situation we're in, Wolverhampton Wanderers are a bit of a stepping stone. Now, I don't mind being a stepping stone if it's done in the way that Ruben Neves does it or Jota does it, and not throwing your toys out the pram. But
Neves was trying to get a move to Barcelona for 6 months, and let's not pretend he's an angel all of a sudden.
oh, don't you talk about Ruben like that.
They're all the same, though. They're all the same. Kuna gets bad press, but he's no different to Neto, Neves, Jota. And that's because of the culture of the football club. We are literally selling ourselves to come here for 2 years and then off you pop somewhere bigger and better. And I think that ties into Borley's point that at some point, as Nocky says, it will catch up with you. We're probably near the end of that cycle, aren't we? Because say Kuna and Aït-Nouri go.
Who's next?
Gomez and Andre potentially, but you don't often see players in their position with their limitations, and I mean that by
creativity.
You don't see them going for mega money. So once Kuna and Aït-Nouri go, I'd argue that cycle's almost come to an end, really.
Well, luckily for Wolves, if Aït-Nouri goes and Cunha goes and Gedge and Sarabia, Wolves are going to have somewhere between, I'd say, 120 and 150 million. And if you look at the business done recently, obviously Agbadou, 15, 16 million. And then you look back at Andre and Joe Gomez, those deals are out there to be had. So as long as you replace quality with quality, not potential, not replacing potential with quality, quality with quality, I think Wolves will be okay, Borley. But unfortunately, with PSR and the way the Premier League rules are now, this is what we have to do to survive, because to pay the wages and who we are and the turnover of the club, it's not ideal. And we've got a club that wants to be as self-sufficient as possible. But unfortunately...
But do you think, Ryan, that, or either of you, say we get, I'm with you, I think we probably bring in about 150. A, is that all going to be available to spend? And B, is there going to be any more than that to spend? Because that, for me, just shows you're standing still, aren't you? You're not investing. You're using the money that you're bringing in to replace. That's showing me no investment from folks, and again, no investment from the hierarchy. And do we get what we need with that money when we probably think...
And I'd argue with the list going that we need at least 6 players.
I'd say double that. 6 for me is nowhere near it.
Well, I'm assuming no goalkeepers go on that list.
Well, Johnston's gone, isn't it? So you're going to lose one as a minimum, yeah.
Nocky?
I think you need a dozen players, easy.
Yeah, I mean, with the players that are going to go, I think we need at least 10. At least 10, because I don't think you're going to have that. You've got to balance the squad first and foremost. You need to replace Cunha. Cunha's, what was his 40 odd million when we signed him? We haven't made a huge amount of profit on him.
22.5 mil. Yeah.
So I think if we can get somewhere in the region of 150 million, I would expect we'll spend at least 130 of that. Otherwise, I don't think we'll be able to field an 11.
Yeah, I think Wolves have got to spend 100 million.
But like we won't spend more than we bring in, because that's not how Folkestone operate. We are a self-sufficient club, which is why I've still got
making profit mark from where we finish it. Our only isn't from player sales, is it? Let's be honest.
Yeah, but the point is we won't go above what we can bring in. That's how the self-sufficient model is balanced. We won't go above that because they want the profits going into the club, as well as being able to stabilise by keeping PSR at arm's length and only spending what you're bringing in. So I don't anticipate it's going above what we bring in, but we should bring in about 150. But I do think there'll be 12 players walk out the door. Not all of them are going to be a huge loss, but all of them are going to be...
3 of them are going to be a huge loss.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but then you've also got, look at Sarabia. He came off the bench and he turned games this season. He turned games against Villa. Yeah. He got the goal against Man United. There's been a couple of games that he's really affected. You could argue Tommy Doyle, and I'm not his biggest fan, but look at the impact he made against Brighton. Look at the impact he made against Man United when he set the second goal. So all these players we're getting rid of, you've got to bring in players who can affect the 11. And I think as well, going back to Borley's question, every club in the world is a feeder club for somebody else. It's just when you do that. For us, we bring players who are raw. We build them up to the level where they're then ready to be top quality Premier League players, and we move them on. But if Cunha has a good season at Man United, don't think Real Madrid won't come sniffing and he'll throw his toys back out the pram again because he'll be looking for a move to an even bigger club. Everyone's a stepping stone, but it's how you balance the books. It's how you make sure you've got a conveyor belt of quality players coming in. And on with Tyler, I think that this is our last two real big financial hitters that we can offload. And after that, you're almost in a bit of a sticky spot, aren't you?
Yeah, really good point. Borley, thank you for being part of the latest Wolves report. This is a great question that we sort of put on hold from earlier on. Yam Pat says, given that Uncle George and Valdir were front and centre in the January window, does this marginalise Hobbs' position even further, particularly when Agba and Manetzi were overtly Vitor Pereira picks? That's a really good point. Now, a couple of years ago back, Wolves tried to distance themselves for whatever reason with Gestifew, obviously still a relationship, but not signing as many players. And Hobbs took the reins, and credit to him, João Gomez, Andre, there has been some really, really good signings. However, recently, it was his job to potentially replace a manager, but instead of replacing him at the end of last season, he gave him a new contract and then couldn't find a replacement now, which is a big concern. So this is a really good point. How much in bed are Wolves going to get back in with Gestifew? Now, we know the rules here. They come for a little bit less than what they're probably worth, and they go for a little bit less because that's just unfortunately, that's just the carousel that we're on. But without that carousel, Wolves wouldn't have had an FA Cup semi-final, European quarter-final, and consecutive seven finishes in the Premier League. So, first of all, Tyler, I very much welcome George Mendes and Valdir back into the fold to do some recruitment for Wolves. Better players, better football, more fun. But how does that affect things I run at Wolves? Obviously, Wolves need a director of football. You still need to do all that kind of stuff. But how much of a knock-on effect will that have to the people heading up the recruitment at the club?
Yeah, I think the biggest thoughts I have on this is that, Nocky might have mentioned it, I don't necessarily think we're in a position now where we can buy potential. I think we have to buy ready-made players to come in and have an impact. So you could argue Neves and Jota were of that ilk, but we were in the Championship, so it's hard to gauge. Neto took a good few years to get up to speed. Max Kilman took a good couple of years to get up to speed, although obviously not necessarily that model. So for me, it will be interesting if there is involvement from them. How do we attract those ready-made players? Because I think we're probably all of agreement, most Wolves fans, as we talked about earlier, you can probably pick 4, 5, 6 of your starting players for next season. I want the other 4, 5 or 6 to be ready-made to come in. They can't be potential. We've still got potential with Gomez and Lima and maybe 1 or 2 others. But that's where I'm not sure how this might work with Mendes, because for me, I think we need established footballers to come in, which Hobbs, to be fair to him, with Agbadou, Gomez, Andre, Strand Larson, to a point recently, he's done pretty well on. So,
yeah, fair.
I can't answer the question because I think only time will tell, but it's certainly an interesting dynamic. But I don't really want to see too many 17, 18-year-old South Americans coming in. I want to see ready-made players.
Yeah, you don't mind a few potential, but they can't be coming straight into the team. We thought we'd see more of Pedro Lima. Got to be honest, every time I've seen him, I thought it was really good. But obviously, the manager doesn't see that. Maybe it's the defensive side of his game, but there's certainly a footballer in there. Pat, as always, a regular speaker on the Wolves Spaces that we do. Hopefully, we'll have one of them in the summer sometime as well. Pat, thank you for being part of the show. Tastic with a bit of a tongue-in-cheek question now. With the Premier League and FA failing to relegate us with VAR decisions and fixture allocations, what will they have in store for us next? I believe next season, Tastic, if your team begins with a W, you have to start each game without a goalkeeper. So yeah, that's the new rule.
We did that a couple of times with Bentley and Golson, so we've done the used to that.
What I would say is, though, just briefly, and I don't want to talk about it because it's dominated a lot of the podcast, is VAR is absolutely pathetic. There are decisions week in, week out. The delay is ruining the excitement, the spontaneity, the ecstasy of goals. It's ruining it. So, do you know what?
I do feel, I don't know about you lads, but I do feel a bit sorry for Villa though on that one from the weekend. I mean, that was really harsh, wasn't it?
I was devastated.
I know. I feel really bad for them.
Anyway, jokes aside, though, it ruined the playoff final as well, because I don't think they should have disallowed the goal in the playoff final. I don't think he was in his line, and the only time it gets involved in the Football League, for me, it makes a mistake.
Yeah, a friend of the show, Keith Hackett, said as well the same. Knocker, he said that's a goal. He said, "Well, I don't know why they disallowed it. It's not. You're ruining the game." So
yeah. So the first time VAR gets involved in a Championship game, it manages to ruin it. So just, I mean, you know my feelings on VAR. I think it's an absolute stain on the game, but it ain't going anywhere, is it?
Absolutely stinks. Tastic, thank you for being part of the show throughout of the season. Bridget asks, Geds has not lived up to his price tag, but we occasionally get glimpses of great stuff. VP must see something. Is it 3 or 4 starts? Will he stay? And your thoughts on him? I think he'll be off in the summer. I do think there's a really talented footballer there, but like with Sarabia, I think this is someone that's more suited to the league in Spain. I think he's done really well there. I think he's a very technical footballer. I think
his movement's superb. It is really good.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a fantastic footballer. It's not worked out. I'm not sure. In my opinion, he's the most committed player and trainer there is in the group, I would say. A talent. We spent a lot of money. I think we chased him and talked about him for a few years, but I think he'll be gone. And I think the manager has been more than fair. I think he's had a good run in. When he first came in, I think he scored that goal away at Leicester. He looked like he was going to be a big part of Vitor's plans. Got injured, didn't really come back in again. So, Bridget, I don't think he'll be here next season. Gents?
Yeah.
I agree. No, and on the back of that, Mark, what does it say about Hwang as well? Because Hwang's had even less opportunities than him. So what does it say about him as well?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about, sorry, Nocky, we talked about this quite a lot, but Wolverhampton Wanderers last summer turned down £20 million for Hwang Hee-chan. Now, I got hammered for saying that we should take that. I got absolutely hammered for it by some people, but we could see he was in a bit of form, but then he disappeared off. So for me, I mean, Wolves get 10 million for him now? If that, crazy. There's been some good recruitment, but equally there's been some crazy decisions. Bridget, thank you for being part of the latest episode. Quick question now from Joss. I'll answer this one. A bit concerning that none of our top young academy players like Akawandu and Mane have signed pro deals yet. Ryan, any reasons for this? I believe the Mane deal, I believe he's pretty much signed. I don't think they've announced it. As for the other guy, I don't know about that, but I believe the Mane deal, he's pretty much done, hopefully so. It's great to see him get some minutes, a young player getting amongst it. He didn't have a lot of time, but when he got the ball, he certainly didn't look out of position. Hopefully we'll see more of him, particularly in the Cup next season, get a few starts. Giles, thank you for being part of the show. Let's have a little look at this. Chris from America asks, despite Vitor coming in and righting the ship, from a front office perspective, can this season only be seen as a disappointment, or is it achieving what Fosun want in and staying up? I think you've mentioned this earlier on, Tyler, but if you just follow that up for us, in your opinion earlier on it.
Yeah, I think for me, it can only be seen as a disappointment. However, I think the second part of the question is spot on, and I think that's where we're at the moment. I think they're just comfortable with the regular Premier League income and keeping the brand in the Premier League. I think that's as far as they want to take it at the moment.
Good stuff. Chris, thank you for being part of the show. Now, we have a stinker each week, and this is the stinker to end the season. Now, lots of people may agree or disagree with this, but we'll get it up and get your opinions. I think the panel will be unanimous on this, but it would depend, I guess, on how long you've been watching Wolves. Alex asks and wins this week's stinker. Would Tyler and Nocky accept relegation, but meaning we would win the FA Cup? Nocky, you go first.
Yes. I think Tyler mentioned it earlier, didn't it? Does it matter what league you're in as long as your football team's there? A trophy is something you carry with you for the rest of your life, isn't it? You take it to your grave and you get to enjoy that with, your family and we'd all be together there as well. So in a heartbeat, I'd take an FA Cup win over staying in the division.
Tyler?
I couldn't have put it any better. Yeah, 100% from there.
Yeah, I just don't see how. I think we're of an age. I don't know if we were all at Villa Park when Arsenal beat us in the FA Cup
Christopher
final.
Ray when it scored that. Yeah,
painful. And when I don't know, should have tried to go around the keeper and they should have just tapped it in. I don't know who it was, but then you drop Steve Bull and Robbie Keane, then you've only got yourself to blame. Again, that hurts 30 years.
That's what I mean. But you're talking you've hit the nail on the head because that's what you remember.
Yeah.
Didn't he play Steve Claridge up front in that game?
Steve Claridge and Robbie Slater, yeah. As you like them apples.
I mean, why would you do that?
Should we get McGee on the show and see what he's got to say?
Mark McGee.
Oh, was it McGee or was it Graham Taylor? I thought it was Graham Taylor.
McGee, that was.
Mark McGee, yeah.
Yeah, get him on the show then. Because he needs to answer for that. I mean, that is one.
Could you imagine coming on and just hammering him, and then just? What?
But that's got to be one of the worst managerial decisions in football.
The worst, yeah. For a Wolves fan, that was the worst.
Robbie Slater and Steve Claridge, who never scored a professional goals for Wolves, over Steve Bull and Robbie Keane. Where's your thought process on that? You've got me wound up now, Ryan, with that question. That's absolutely horrendous.
Mark McGee must have gone out the night before, all right, got leathered and forgot how to spell Bull and King. I thought, I'll write these down because I've forgotten how to spell their names. We're at the end of the show, gents. There's no prediction time. But honestly, guys, thank you so much for being part of this year's show again. Hopefully, you'll be back for more. I know we have to win. I know Tyler's already wants a bigger pay deal, but Noki's already signed up as the club captain. Gents, any particular highlights through the season? Is there any moment that's not on the podcast, obviously, because you guys abused me in the group chat, but any particular highlights, your own personal highlight from this season?
I think Cunha's winner against the Villa, because there was so much pressure on the game. Manchester United stands out for me because I still think they're an absolutely huge club, and to go to Old Trafford and be there with my lad and watch, Sarabia bend that absolute perler into the top corner. That's probably what I'll take away from the season as my highlight. But it's slim pickings a little bit, isn't it? And the Spurs game at home as well. I think probably all the wins, to be fair, because there wasn't too many of them for quite a while. But Man U for me stands out because they're still an absolutely huge football club.
Tyler?
Yeah, I'll be lucky to be with Hebron, and they don't get it because they're younger. But as we've talked about before, we were just born up with Man United winning everything, and it was boring. So to go there, right in front of where we were, celebrate right in front of us, that's the one. But I think Leicester away was a good day, Noki, as well.
That was a great day. Yeah. You
had
the worst coat
on. I think, to be honest, that coat probably turned the season. So.
Was that the debut of the disaster coat? I can't remember.
For those who've not seen his coat, it's like the Jolly Green Giant has taken a trip to Ibiza and come back with a souvenir. You've never seen anything like it. For me personally, gents, Villa at home for me was the highlight. Obviously, it means
it's always good being that. Yeah,
it's our Premier League derby, but it wasn't just the fact it was a tuck in and see what happens. Wolves pumped Villa, and it could have been 3, 4, or 5. It was probably the best we played. I thought we were good against Man United Boxing Day, but I thought the Villa game was really, really good. This has been episode 132 and the final episode of this season. Thank you so much to Noki. Noki, much love. Tyler, thank you for your time, you miserable bastard.
Anytime.
Ladies and gentlemen, there's no more Cunha 1-0 up the Wolves.